I was 51 when my mother died, 53 when my father followed. That's not the part that hurt most. What hurt was realizing somewhere in the middle of all that grief that I had spent years being physically present and emotionally somewhere else, standing in their kitchen, sitting at their table, and thinking about work, about my own life, about whatever was next. Never quite there, never quite with them. I don't say that to punish myself. I say it because it's true, and because I think a lot of people my age are doing the same thing right now with their own parents, and they don't even know it. There are 3 things I wish I had done differently. Not grand gestures, not trips, not perfectly timed moments. Small things, quiet things, the kind you don't notice you've missed until the person is gone, and suddenly the missing them is everywhere. The first one is this. I wish I had asked them what their lives actually felt like. Not what happened, what it felt like. I knew the facts of my parents' lives, where they grew up, what jobs they worked, and roughly when they met. That kind of surface-level biography you absorb over decades without really trying. But I never sat down and asked my father what it felt like to be 22 and responsible for a family when he was barely more than a boy himself. I never asked my mother whether she was happy in those early years, or whether she had things she wanted that she quietly set aside. I assumed I knew. You assume a lot about the people who raised you. You think closeness means understanding. It doesn't always. My father wasn't a man who offered things up. He wasn't cold, but he wasn't expressive either. You had to ask, and I didn't ask. Not really. I asked how his back was, whether he'd seen the doctor. The maintenance questions, the ones that make you feel like a responsible son without requiring either of you to go anywhere uncomfortable. About 8 months before he died, he started telling me things. Small pieces. Stories I'd never heard. A job he walked away from. A friend he always regretted losing. A year he once called the hardest of his life, and then stopped. I didn't follow up. I don't know why. There was more there. There's always more there. After he was gone, I found myself desperate to know things I could no longer ask. Not facts. Feelings. What he was afraid of. What he was proud of. Whether he thought he'd done enough. Whether he felt seen. I had no idea, and I'd had years to find out. The second thing is harder to say cleanly, so I'll just say it plainly. I wish I had let them help me more. At some point, and I couldn't tell you exactly when, I stopped letting my parents feel useful. I stopped calling when things were hard. I handled things. I sorted things out. I brought them good news and managed the bad stuff quietly, off to the side, where it wouldn't worry them. I thought I was being considerate. I think now I was being something else. Proud, maybe, or afraid of being seen as someone who couldn't manage. My mother used to ask, every single call, whether everything was all right, and every single time I said yes. Fine, everything's fine. Some of those times it was true. Some of those times it wasn't. She knew. I think she knew. She had this way of pausing after I said it, like she was waiting to see if I'd change my answer. I never did. What I've understood since is that my parents didn't just want to receive from me. They wanted to give. That instinct doesn't stop when your children grow up. It changes shape, but it doesn't stop. When I refused help, when I deflected worry, when I insisted I was fine, I wasn't protecting them. I was shutting them out. There were moments toward the end of my mother's life when I finally let that drop. When I told her something real, she came alive in those moments in a way I didn't expect. Not because the news was good, but because I let her in. That's what she always wanted, just to be let in. I regret all the years I made that harder than it needed to be. The third thing is this. I wish I had said certain things out loud that I assumed they already knew. I loved my parents. I showed up. I helped. All of that is true. But there are specific things I never said directly. Things I thought were so obvious they didn't need saying. They do. I never told my father that I understood how much he had sacrificed. That I saw it. That I was grateful. He would have been uncomfortable. He probably would have brushed it off. But underneath that, I think he would have wanted to hear it. With my mother, it was different. There were things she did that I carried quite a resentment for. The kind that stays with you longer than it should. And by the time I understood her, really understood her, I never told her. I never said that I got it, that the resentment was gone. I think she carried something about that. I'll never know for certain, but I think she did. We don't say these things because they feel awkward or unnecessary or because we assume there will be more time. There isn't always more time. There is a last conversation, and you don't know it's the last one while it's happening. You think it's just another Tuesday, another call, another visit, another chance, and then there isn't. I'm 54 years old and both of my parents are gone, and the grief I carry isn't about the big moments. It's about the ordinary ones I didn't pay enough attention to, the questions I didn't ask, the help I didn't accept, the words I kept postponing. If your parents are still here, that's what I would say to you. Not to plan something big, Just be a little more present than you think you need to be. Ask the question you've been assuming you already know the answer to. Say the thing you've been meaning to say. You probably have more time than I did, but probably isn't the same as definitely. And I learned that the hard way.